What if I told you the reason you're broke isn't your job, your bills, or even the economy, it's you? You see, most people spend their entire lives chasing money, without ever learning the rules that make money chase them. Mary Hunt, a woman who once hit rock bottom with thousands in debt, didn't just survive, she rewrote her financial destiny. And in this audiobook, she's about to reveal the 7 money rules for life that can turn your chaos into control, your stress into strategy, and your wallet into freedom. Buckle up, because after hearing this, you'll never think about money the same way again.
I'm Emma, and joining me today is John as we unpack this amazing blueprint.
Welcome to BookPodCastZone. Today we are embarking on quite a journey, a really deep dive, not just into a book, but into what feels like a complete financial overhaul blueprint. Mary Hunt's 7 Rules of Financial Freedom.
It really is a crucial deep dive, Emma, because, for so many people listening, financial anxiety, it's not really solved by finding the next hot stock tip, right?
Yeah.
It's solved by changing behavior. And Hunt's work, well, it really stands out because it focuses so intensely on those emotional and psychological steps first. The shift from chaos to actually feeling in control, way before you even start thinking about asset allocation or anything like that.
Exactly. So our mission here is to give you, the learner, kind of the ultimate shortcut. We're going to distill the core mindset shifts and, importantly, the actionable steps straight from Mary Hunt's journey. And we really want to highlight those intense emotional arcs she talks about for each rule. It's not just what she did, but why those sometimes painful psychological steps were absolutely necessary for her to gain real mastery.
Absolutely. We'll follow her path, chronologically, starting with that immediate crisis management, stopping the bleeding, basically, then moving through building security and finally getting to those long-term wealth-sustaining strategies. And, the source material, it really hammers this home. The first 2 rules are just pure triage, like emergency room stuff. If you don't nail those, forget about the rest.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Rules 1 and 2. Stopping the bleeding, the immediate crisis. Okay, let's unpack this first one. Rule 1, live on less than you make. It sounds, well, almost laughably simple on the surface, doesn't it?
Deceptively simple, yeah.
But Hunt makes it crystal clear. This isn't some casual suggestion. It's a mandate born out of, pure, terrifying panic. She really forces you, the listener, into that visceral moment she experienced.
The drive-through.
Yes. The night the credit card gets declined at the drive-through. That very public moment of humiliation and the raw, blinding panic that follows. That's the start, isn't it? That ignites Rule 1.
Mm-hmm. And that moment of shock, it's not just embarrassing, is it? It's transformative, or at least it can be. Hunt uses that external failure to force a necessary internal shift. The emotional journey she maps out for Rule 1 is pretty distinct. It moves from this deep shame, feeling out of control, irresponsible, straight into the stark, immediate shock of realizing the public, real-world consequences. Bam, it hits you.
And that shock is the key.
Well, if it's severe enough, yeah. It often acts as the catalyst needed to shift into what she calls stubborn hope. And that hope isn't just wishful thinking. It's the actual commitment to do the really difficult day-to-day grind required to track your habits, figure out what's going wrong, and actually change things.
So the practical side of this,
yeah,
it's way more intense than just, say, making a budget, which most people think of. The source material, it insists this is like forensic accounting.
Yeah.
But on your own life.
Yeah, track every rupee like it's evidence in a trial, or every dollar, every cent.
Exactly. You're essentially gathering evidence against your past self, proving exactly where the financial leaks, the negligence happened. And this means, no rounding numbers, no guessing.
No miscellaneous category that swallows half your income.
Right. No category is too small to investigate. You have to get brutally honest.
And we should probably dig a bit deeper into how you actually do that forensic audit she talks about. Because, Hunt argues that most people, they focus on the big stuff, rent, mortgage, car payment, fine. But they completely ignore what she calls the 4 horsemen of unnecessary spending.
Okay, what are those?
Things like food delivery constantly, subscription bloat, all those streaming services or apps you forget you're paying for, frequent small impulse, buys the coffee here, the snack there, and convenience fees paying extra just because it's easier.
Yeah, the little things that add up massively.
Exactly. And the sources specifically mention stacking Zomato bills in 2025, India as an example. But it applies everywhere, right? Think DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats here in the US. Those daily takeout or delivery charges, they are the perfect modern example of how these small, frequent costs, all masked by convenience, just absolutely demolish a budget.
It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Totally. We're talking hundreds of tiny decisions every month that aggregate into huge financial leaks. So to actually live on less than you make, you have to find and seal every single one of those leaks first. It's meticulous work.
It really requires a level of detail that I think most people actively try to avoid. It's uncomfortable, right, facing it.
Super uncomfortable.
It's usually not the house payment that's making you broke month to month. It's the 15, 20 small purchases you completely forget about by the end of the week. And that leads us perfectly into the very next immediate step, which is stopping the damage these leaks cause from getting any worse. Okay, so rule 2. Here's where, for me, it gets really interesting because it's about the daily battle. Rule 2 is that immediate, absolutely non-negotiable directive. Stop creating
New
debt.
full stop, yeah.
This is where you face that constant confrontation with temptation, with consumer culture. Hunt gives this really vivid scenario. Sitting in the mall parking lot, maybe scrolling on your phone, finger hovering over the buy now button.
We've all been there.
Right. And then just slamming on the brakes mentally or physically and walking away or driving away. That struggle really captures the core fight against that instant gratification pull.
And this rule, it's entirely about establishing psychological boundaries. It has to be. The emotional arc she describes starts with that instant, powerful pull of temptation, the desire for that quick dopamine hit, maybe a reward you feel you deserve, or just the pressure to keep up appearances, maintain a certain lifestyle. That urge, that impulse, it has to be immediately checked by what she calls the cold sweat. That sudden, chilling realization that this purchase, right now, requires you to sign away more of your future earnings. It just tightens the debt trap you're trying to escape.
And the goal?
The goal is the victory roar. Maybe it's internal, maybe you actually pump your fist, I don't know. But it's that feeling of walking away, having maintained your financial integrity, your psychological control. You won that battle.
And what I really appreciate about Hunt's approach here is that she doesn't just say, use willpower. Because let's be honest, willpower is notoriously unreliable, especially when you're stressed or tired.
Oh, totally. It's finite.
So she advocates for the physical deterrent, the famous freeze the cards, literally. Put them in a container of water, stick them in the freezer.
Yeah, or cut them up, or lock them away somewhere really inconvenient.
Right. The idea is, if you have to go through the hassle of taking a credit card out of a block of ice or maybe microwaving it or having to call the bank to get the number, you inject massive physical friction between the impulse and the actual purchase.
It short-circuits the instant gratification loop.
Exactly. It's the practical, almost extreme step needed to enforce that psychological boundary you're trying to build from Rule 1.
And it's really the essential counter strategy to how modern commerce works, isn't it? Everything is designed for one-click buying, frictionless transactions. The sources point directly at BNPL Buy Now, Pay Later apps, calling them the new silent assassins. And that feels right. They're designed specifically to eliminate friction. They offer these little microloans, often bypassing traditional credit checks, convincing you that a, say, $60 item isn't $60. It's just 4 easy payments of $15.
These are harmless.
Until you have 10 of those running at once. These small, insidious debts aggregate incredibly quickly, often with weird fees or interest if you miss a payment. Hunt's Rule 2 provides the immediate escape hatch. You must proactively build resistance where technology is literally designed to eradicate it. And look, for anyone listening who thinks freezing cards is, too extreme, well, consider the alternative. You're letting this constant stream of small, often interest-bearing loans completely undermine all the hard work you're doing tracking every dollar from Rule 1. It's self-sabotage.
That's a really good point, but there is a little nuance here. Maybe we should touch on it. Some people might worry, okay, if I freeze or cut up all my cards, what about my credit score? Don't I need to use credit to have good credit?
That's a fair question, definitely a common concern, but Hunt's methodology, especially in this critical initial phase, Rules 1 and 2, it prioritizes survival over optimization. This isn't about maximizing your FICO score right now.
Okay.
It's about stopping the financial bleeding completely. You can absolutely maintain a positive credit history later, or even during this phase, by keeping maybe just one card open. Use it for a tiny, pre-approved subscription purchase like Netflix or something you were going to pay anyway. Pay it off in full immediately, like the day it posts, and then lock the card away again.
So minimal use, immediate payoff.
Exactly. But the vast majority of people struggling with debt, they need that physical friction of freezing or shredding all the active lines of credit to actually break the ingrained habit of spending money they haven't earned yet. Survival first, optimization comes later.
That makes perfect sense. Stop the bleeding, stabilize the patient. Okay? So, Once you've done that, once you've stopped the bleeding with Rule 1 and Rule 2,
Yeah.
and you've established those crucial initial boundaries, then you can finally start building something secure. All right, before we move on to building that security, just a quick reminder, if you're finding this deep dive helpful, please do like, subscribe, and share. It really helps us bring more content like this to you. Okay, let's talk about Rule 3. So we shift gears a bit now. Rule 3, build an emergency fund. This feels like the real pivot point, doesn't it? Where the focus moves from just damage control to actually creating this impenetrable layer of self-protection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's proactive, not just reactive.
And Mary Hunt, she uses this gut-wrenching, really poignant example in the source material. A single, totally unexpected hospital bill that threatens to just drown an otherwise, reasonably stable family financials.
It's close to home for a lot of folks, especially in the U.S. system.
For sure. And the emergency fund in that scenario, it isn't just savings. It's literally the life raft she throws to prevent utter catastrophe.
And this fund, it directly addresses that paralyzing uncertainty of life, right? Because things will happen. Cars break down, people get sick, jobs get lost. The emotional arc she describes here is intense. It often starts with this crippling fear, that constant background hum of worry that the next unexpected event is going to send you spiraling right back into debt, undoing all the hard work of Rules 1 and 2.
Yeah, that fear is draining.
Totally. And that fear, Aunt suggests, often transforms into fury. Like genuine anger at the lack of security, the financial fragility that so many people experience in modern life. You get mad about it.
Yeah, anger as fuel.
Exactly. When channeled correctly, that fury drives the fierce protection mindset, that non-negotiable, intense commitment to build an untouchable financial buffer. And typically the gold standard is what? 3 to 6 months of absolute minimum living expenses, not your full income, but the bare bones you need to survive.
And the power of having that fund.
Yeah.
It's not just financial, is it? It's deeply emotional. It changes the whole tenor of your daily life.
Oh, completely. When the washing machine suddenly dies, it's not a, oh my God, how will we pay for this financial disaster? It's an inconvenience, a hassle. You sigh, you might curse a bit, but then you just pay cash for a new one from the fund. The panic is gone.
That absence of panic is huge. And the key idea here, she really illustrates the exponential value of starting small. The source uses this motivational metric. When 1,000 today, it'll 1 lakh tomorrow. Now, obviously the numbers aren't literal financial advice, but the principle.
Right. Whether we're talking rupees or let's say $20 today could feel like $2,000 tomorrow in terms of security. The point is the value of just starting, even if it's tiny. That small initial deposit, if you consistently add to it, provides compounding security. And maybe even more importantly in this phase, it provides the mental clarity to tackle the next big step, Rule 4, without that paralyzing fear of being completely derailed by one minor setback.
You have a cushion.
You have a cushion. And we really need to highlight the contemporary context here, too. The sources specifically call out gig workers in 2025, or really anyone with variable income today, as needing this fund most acutely.
Yeah, freelancers, contract workers, small business owners.
Exactly. Their income streams are just inherently more volatile, less predictable than traditional salary jobs. For a freelancer, that emergency fund isn't some nice-to-have luxury. It's basically business continuity insurance.
Good way to put it.
A single major client dropping off unexpectedly, or a period where you get sick and can't work. That can mean the difference between just some minor stress and total financial ruin if you don't have that buffer. It needs to be liquid, immediately accessible, usually in a high-yield savings account, separate from your regular checking ready to deploy instantly.
And critically, it insulates you from breaking Rule 2, right? It stops you from reaching for the credit card the moment life throws a curveball.
Precisely. It protects your progress.
Okay, so the fund is established. Maybe it's not fully funded at 6 months yet, but you've started, it's growing. That financial shield is starting to take shape. Now you can turn your full, focused energy toward that mountain of existing debt you stopped adding to back in Rule 2. Right, this careful preparation leads us straight into Rule 4. Get out of debt. This feels like the real battle phase.
Yeah.
Intensive, focused action where you finally shift from defense to offense.
Yeah, this is where the fight really begins.
Hunt paints this incredibly powerful mental image of gathering up all your credit card statements, loan documents, all that paper representing the debt, and metaphorically lighting a match under it. It signifies the official start of the debt elimination plan. She favors the debt snowball method, which we'll get into. But it's about the strategic obliteration of all that consumer debt you accrued before Rule 2 kicked in.
And any journey of this magnitude, especially when you first lay out all the numbers, it almost always starts with a feeling of just overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. Seeing it all in black and white can be terrifying.
Looking at potentially thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars in credit card balances, personal loans, medical debt,
Yeah.
it can feel completely paralyzing. Like, where do I even start?
Mm-hmm.
Hunt's strategy, the snowball, is specifically designed to immediately transition that dread into what she calls a singular obsession, a relentless, almost hyper-focused repayment effort. This phase is often characterized by radical action selling stuff you don't need, taking on extra work, cutting expenses down to the absolute bone.
Slashing the budget way past the initial Rule 1 cuts.
Way past. And
Yeah.
dedicating every single extra dollar you can find towards debt repayment. This intense focus, this obsession, eventually leads to that glorious moment she calls the liberation dance, the pure joy and celebration when you make that final payment and regain complete control.
Love that, the liberation dance. Okay, but the key idea here is the specific strategy Hunt endorses. Smallest debt first, fastest wins. This is the debt snowball. Now, we have to stress why she and many others choose this method over the mathematically superior debt avalanche method.
Right. The avalanche method says target the debt with the highest interest rate first, regardless of the balance. From a pure numbers perspective, doing that will save you the most money on interest over the long run, no question.
So why doesn't Hunt push for that? Why the snowball?
It's purely psychological. And this is where Hunt's focus on behavior really shines. Think about it. If you're facing, say, $20,000 in total debt, and your highest interest card has a $15,000 balance at 25%,
Yeah.
tackling that first can feel endless.
Yeah, you could be throwing extra money at it for a year and barely see the principal budge because the interest keeps piling up.
Exactly. That lack of visible progress is incredibly defeating for most people. It feels like you're running in place, and that's often when people give up. They abandon the plan.
Okay.
The snowball, however, flips that. You list all your debts, smallest balance to largest, ignore the interest rates for a moment, and attack the smallest debt with everything you've got while paying minimums on the rest. Maybe it's a $300 old medical bill or a $500 store credit card.
You can knock those out relatively quickly.
Right. You get these quick wins. You kill off a whole debt account maybe in just a few months. That feels good. It provides this critical momentum, this psychological fuel, these tangible victories that are necessary to maintain that obsession phase required for the long haul.
So you feel like you're making progress, which keeps you motivated.
Precisely. It keeps the motivation high.
Yeah.
Then, once that smallest debt is gone, you take all the money you were paying on it, the minimum plus the extra, and add it to the minimum payment of the next smallest debt. Your payment snowballs get bigger and bigger, knocking out subsequent debts faster and faster.
Got it. So it's less about saving every last possible dollar in interest and much more about ensuring you actually stick to the plan long enough to clear the debt entirely. It's, like you said, a strategy designed for humans, not calculators.
Exactly. It prioritizes behavioral success over mathematical optimization in this specific context. And the effectiveness of this intense focus, it's undeniable when people commit. The source material gives that really tangible, real-world example. Real couple clears 18 lakh in 26 months.
Which is what? Roughly $22,000 USD in just over 2 years.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on the exchange rate. Clearing that amount of consumer debt in just 26 months, that demonstrates that this focused effort, guided by the psychological power and momentum of the snowball, can absolutely conquer seemingly impossible debt loads. It proves the plan is achievable, provided that commitment, that obsession is absolute during this phase.
Wow, okay. So once that debt is finally cleared, I mean, you are operating in a completely different financial universe at that point.
Night and day.
The crisis is over, the past debt is erased, the emergency shield is up. Now it's finally time to look forward. Okay, another quick pause here. If you're getting value from this breakdown of Mary Hunt's rules, hitting that like and subscribe button would be amazing. Sharing it helps too. Now let's move into the future-focused rules. All right, let's look ahead now. We're moving into the long game with Rule 5, Save for the Future. This is where Mary Hunt forces the listener into this really stark visualization exercise.
Yeah, the time machine moment.
Exactly. She basically says, okay, fast forward yourself to age 65, or maybe 70, and she demands you confront that retirement reality now. The question is terrifyingly simple.
Ugh.
Are you going to be comfortably sipping chai or coffee or whatever, financially free, enjoying life?
Or are you going to be stressed out, worrying about how you'll pay your next utility bill, maybe forced to keep working long past when you wanted to stop? It's a brutal choice she makes you face.
It really is. And this visualization, it's specifically designed to break through that very human tendency towards denial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We are just wired to prioritize immediate rewards, immediate gratification, and that comfortable, dangerous belief that, oh, retirement is so far off, I'll worry about it later. It's incredibly powerful and pervasive.
Yeah, future me will handle it.
Right. Future me is somehow magically going to be richer and more disciplined. Hunt insists we have to move past that denial. She wants us to shift into a positive daydream, actively visualizing that comfortable, secure future, but also understanding precisely what kind of savings and investment that life actually requires.
So getting specific about the goal.
Yes. And then that daydream, that vision, it must be cemented by consistent, unwavering discipline. But not just willpower discipline. She emphasizes the mechanisms you put in place to make that dream an unavoidable reality.
And this is where the key idea comes in, where like the genius of modern personal finance tools really meets Hunt's philosophy. It's about removing unreliable human willpower from the equation almost entirely. The mandate is crystal clear. Automate before you can sabotage. If you, the listener, have to consciously choose to save money every single month, every single paycheck, well, the chances of failure are just incredibly high. Life happens.
Excuses pop up. Impulse purchases call your name. Unexpected bills arrive. Something will inevitably derail you if it relies solely on your active decision-making month after month.
So automation is the answer.
It's the most powerful tool we have for consistency in saving and investing. It turns saving from an active, potentially painful choice into a passive, effortless habit. If the money for your future, your retirement account contribution, your investment account transfer disappears from your paycheck or your checking account the moment it lands,
Before you even see it, essentially.
before you even really register it's there, before you have a chance to mentally spend it on something else, then you literally cannot spend it. This forced pre-commitment is just a profound psychological trick we can play on ourselves. It guarantees consistency. And consistency over decades is far, far more important than trying to achieve perfect market timing or chasing the absolute highest returns. Consistency in saving is the bedrock prerequisite for building future wealth.
Okay, and the source material actually highlights a specific type of vehicle for this essential automation. It describes SAP's systematic investment plans, particularly in the 2025 context, as the new fixed deposit on steroids. Can you unpack that metaphor for us? What does that really mean?
Sure, so SIPs aren't necessarily a specific product, but a method. It just refers to making regular automated investments, usually into things like mutual funds or index funds. Think about your 401k contribution here in the US. That's essentially a type of SIP.
Okay.
Now, a traditional fixed deposit, or a CD, certificate deposit here, offers stability, safety, but generally very low returns, often barely keeping pace with inflation.
Right. Safe but slow.
Exactly. The steroids part of the metaphor refers to adding the potential growth that comes from participating in the broader market, like stocks or bonds via those funds, combined with the stability and discipline of that fixed regular contribution schedule.
So you get the discipline of the fixed deposit, but the potential upside of the market.
Precisely. SIPs enforce Rule 5 perfectly. They are systematic, meaning automated. They ensure consistency, that's the discipline part. And over the long term, they utilize powerful financial principles like compounding growth and dollar cost averaging.
Dollar cost averaging. That's where buying regularly means you buy more shares when prices are low and fewer when they're high.
Exactly. It smooths out the ride. So SIPs aim to build substantial wealth over decades, offering significantly greater growth potential than just keeping cash in a savings account. And crucially, they do it all without requiring you to exert willpower every single month to make it happen. It's set and forget investing for the long haul.
Okay, now Rule 6. And honestly, this is where, for me, it gets really interesting. Rule 6. Be a generous giver. This feels like the ultimate mindset shift in the whole framework. It proves that true financial freedom, the kind Hunt is talking about, is about way more than just accumulating dollars in an account.
It really is profound, isn't it? Because she completely flips the typical financial script here. Giving is usually seen as something you do after everything else is taken care of, maybe if there's money left over.
Right, like an afterthought or a sacrifice.
But Hunt frames it totally differently. She calls giving a superpower. It's not a drain, not an obligation, but an active benefit, a privilege that financial security unlocks. This introduces that critical, non-mathematical reward that comes from getting your financial house in order.
So let's talk about the emotional journey here. It seems like it would be quite different from the other rules.
It is, and maybe the most counterintuitive. She suggests the journey often starts with lingering guilt. This could be guilt over having enough, or even too much when you see others struggling. Or, conversely, it could be guilt that you feel you can't afford to give anything at all, even if you want to.
Yeah, that feeling of, I wish I could help, but...
Exactly. But when generosity is made intentional, planned, and systematic, just like Saving Hunt argues that guilt transforms into actual goosebumps. That genuine, thrilling excitement you feel when you see your resources, even small amounts, making a positive, immediate, tangible difference for someone else or for a cause you care about.
Okay, that makes sense. The joy of impact.
And over time, this settles into a sustained glow, that deep internal reward, that sense of purpose and connection that actually reinforces the value of all the financial discipline you've cultivated through the other rules. It gives the money meaning beyond just security.
And the practical application of this rule is, well, kind of radical, especially given traditional budgeting advice. She says, 10% off the top rewires your brain. What does off the top mean here, and why is that sequence so crucial?
Off the top means it's the first thing you allocate from your income. Before you pay bills, before you allocate money to savings or investments, Rule 5, and definitely before you spend anything on discretionary stuff. She advocates setting aside 10% for giving right at the very beginning.
Wow, that's bold. Why first?
Because psychologically, it's incredibly powerful for shifting away from a scarcity mindset. Think about the usual approach. You pay bills, save a bit, spend, and then if there's anything left at the end of the month, maybe you give some away.
Yeah, the leftover approach.
Right. And with that approach, your brain is constantly getting the message. Money is tight. I barely have enough. Giving is a sacrifice I can only make if there's a surplus. It reinforces scarcity. But if you deliberately, consistently ensure that 10%, or whatever percentage you choose, but she uses 10% as a benchmark, is allocated to giving immediately right off the top, your brain receives a completely different message over and over. Wow, I have enough that I can afford to give this substantial amount away right now before anything else.
It forces an abundance perspective.
Exactly. It reinforces an abundance mentality, which in turn actually makes the discipline required for all the other 6 rules feel less like painful deprivation and much more like empowerment and capability. It reframes the whole picture.
And crucially, this means generosity isn't like reserved for the wealthy. It's not dependent on having a huge net worth. The source uses that really inspiring, scalable example. Mumbai teen funds school fees with pocket money proof at scales.
Absolutely. That example is key because it confirms that Rule 6 is fundamentally about the commitment and the mindset, not the absolute dollar amount, whether you're giving away $100 or $10 or $10,000. The psychological benefit, the rewiring effect of intentional prioritized generosity is essentially the same. It proves that having financial control at any income level means having the ability to direct your resources toward impact. And that cements the difference between just being solvent, just paying your bills, and achieving true, values-aligned financial freedom.
That's a powerful distinction. Okay, so the first 6 rules have taken us on quite the ride. From chaos and panic, through disciplined tracking, stopping the debt, building the emergency shield, crushing the old balances, automating future savings, and now affirming abundance through giving. Feels like we built something really solid.
Definitely. A strong foundation and structure.
So what's left? Now we have to protect it all. And one more quick reminder for everyone listening, hitting like, subscribe, and sharing this episode really helps us out. We appreciate your support. Let's get into the final rule.
Okay, let's unpack this final piece of the puzzle. We arrive at Rule 7. Plan for the unexpected. This feels like securing the entire perimeter, right? It's about putting in place those non-negotiable insurance and legal protections for everything you've worked so hard to build through the first 6 rules.
It's the final layer of armor.
Mary Hunt essentially hands you what she calls the crystal ball here, acknowledging that bad things can happen and insisting on the mandatory need for things like adequate insurance, updated wills, and that often dreaded what-if file.
Yeah, this rule forces us to confront those really unpleasant realities that, honestly, most of us instinctively want to avoid thinking about. Death, serious illness, disability, accidents. It's not fun stuff.
Definitely not dinner party conversation. Right. So the emotional arc here often starts with deep avoidance. People just don't want to contemplate their own mortality or the possibility of a major disaster striking them or their family. It's uncomfortable.
But that avoidance has a cost.
It absolutely does, because lurking beneath that avoidance is often a deep underlying anxiety. Even if it's subconscious, it's the fear of leaving behind painful, expensive, and incredibly stressful loose ends for your loved ones if the unthinkable does happen. Imagine your family trying to sort things out while grieving. It's awful.
Yeah, chaos on top of grief.
Exactly. So the entire purpose of proactively executing Rule 7 is to move through that avoidance and anxiety to achieve what Hunt calls airtight confidence. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing, with certainty, that regardless of what life throws your way, your plans and protections are legally sound and firmly in place to take care of things.
Okay, and the key idea here is a dose of reality. Brutal, but necessary for every adult. It's often quoted. Hope is not a strategy.
Cannot stress that enough.
Relying on optimism, just hoping that disaster won't strike when it comes to these major life events. That's not financial confidence. That's actually recklessness, isn't it?
It really is. True financial confidence requires concrete, tangible protections, not just positive thinking. So, what are the essential components Hunt insists must be in this plan?
What goes into that airtight plan?
Well, she generally outlines a three-pronged protection strategy. First, and maybe most obviously, adequate insurance. So specifically, she emphasizes term life insurance, especially if you have dependents, and comprehensive health and disability insurance. Disability insurance is often overlooked, but statistically, you're more likely to become disabled during your working years than die.
Wow, okay, good point. What's the second prong?
Second is updated legal documents. This means having current wills for both partners, durable power of attorney for finances, healthcare power of attorney, or living wills. And depending on your situation, maybe setting up trusts. These need to be reviewed periodically, too, especially after major life events like marriage, kids, divorce.
Right, not just a one-and-done thing. And the third?
The third prong is the consolidated what-if file. Some people call it a legacy binder or an emergency file. This is crucial. It's a physical and maybe secure digital backup file that contains all the critical information your family would need immediately if something happened to you.
Like what kind of info?
Account numbers and access information for banks, investments, retirement funds, policy details for all your insurance, locations of original legal documents like wills and birth certificates, contact information for your financial advisor, lawyer, accountant, funeral preferences, if any. Basically, everything someone would need to step in and manage your affairs in the midst of a crisis without having to spend weeks or months playing detective while they're grieving.
That sounds like a massive undertaking, but also incredibly kind to your loved ones.
It's one of the most loving things you can do, honestly. And crucially, while setting all this up might seem daunting or expensive, Hunt emphasizes that the protection itself is often much more accessible than people think. The source uses that very practical, affordable entry point example. Term plans under 1,000 a month equals adulting unlocked.
Or, the equivalent in dollars, which can often be surprisingly low, maybe $30, $50 a month for a healthy young person for a substantial amount of the coverage.
Exactly. That's a critical point to stress. Term life insurance, which covers you for a specific period, like 20 or 30 years, and pays out if you die during that term, is surprisingly inexpensive, especially when you're younger and healthier. Comprehensive disability insurance might cost a bit more, but it protects your single most valuable asset, your ability to earn an income. So this highlights that these absolutely crucial protections are financially attainable for most people. You don't have to be wealthy to implement Rule 7. You don't have to bankrupt yourself to get comprehensive coverage. You just have to take the decisive step of doing the research, figuring out what you need, getting quotes, and actually purchasing the right coverage. Rule 7 isn't about spending a fortune. It's about eliminating devastating, unnecessary financial risk through calculated, accessible protection. It's the final seal on your financial freedom. #TaxE6. Conclusion and final thought.
Wow. Okay, so to bring this all together, let's just quickly synthesize this massive journey we've taken through the 7 rules Mary Hunt laid out. It's been quite detailed.
It really covers the whole spectrum, doesn't it?
It does. We started with that critical, immediate triage.
Yeah.
Rule 1, getting brutally honest and tracking every single transaction. Then Rule 2, slamming the brakes and stopping all new debt creation. Cold turkey.
Stopping the bleeding. Yep.
Then we moved into securing the present and future. Rule 3, building that untouchable emergency fund, that cushion against life's shocks. And Rule 4, ruthlessly crushing the old debt using the psychological power of the debt snowball.
Moving from defense to offense there.
Exactly. And finally, we entered the truly long game. Rule 5, automating savings and investments for a secure and wealthy future. Rule 6, embracing prioritized generosity as a mindset shifter, moving towards abundance. And lastly, Rule 7, protecting everything you've built with a clear legal and insurance plan.
And I think the overarching takeaway, the core message that comes through so strongly from Mary Hunt's intensely personal experience is that achieving real, lasting financial freedom has surprisingly little to do with the actual size of your monthly paycheck.
Which is kind of revolutionary for some people to hear.
It really is. It has almost everything to do with mastering these 7 fundamental structural and crucially behavioral rules. This entire journey, from the panic of Rule 1 to the peace of mind of Rule 7, it's accessible. It's accessible precisely because it starts with psychology acknowledging and then mastering those emotional arcs that take you from shame and fear through obsession and discipline towards fierce protection and ultimately genuine liberation.
Exactly. And understanding that psychology, recognizing those emotional stages in yourself, that's just as important, maybe even more important than understanding the math behind compound interest or debt-to-income ratios. For you, the learner, listening right now, knowing that those feelings of overwhelm or denial or temptation, they aren't personal failures. They are simply stages you have to recognize and consciously move through using a framework like Hunt's to get to that place of genuine confidence and control.
It's a process, not an overnight fix.
All right.
Which I think brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive and think about how to apply these rules in your own life. Building on those powerful concepts in Rule 5, saving for the future, and Rule 6, generosity. Think about this. If dedicating, say, 10% off the top to giving immediately rewires your brain for abundance, as Hunt argues, does diligently optimizing your automated savings, those consistent SIPs or 401k contributions, does that also fundamentally change your perception of today's spending? Perhaps even more powerfully than getting rid of yesterday's debt did.
That's interesting. How so?
Well, consider the ultimate psychological freedom that might come from knowing simultaneously and with certainty 2 things. 1, your future is absolutely secure because your saving is automated and growing. And 2, you are actively making a profound difference in the world today through your prioritized giving. Does that combined knowledge create an even deeper sense of present-day abundance and freedom, allowing you to spend the money that's left with less guilt and more joy?
That's a fascinating question to ponder. The combined effect of securing the future and impacting the present, what that does to your mindset now.
Exactly. Something for you all to mull over.
Definitely something to think about. Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into Mary Hunt's 7 money rules for life.
It's a powerful framework.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on Book Podcast Zone. We'll catch you next time.